The German language has a great legacy and has the largest number of speakers in all of Europe, including countries such as Germany, Austria, Switzerland, as well as places such as Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, and Belgium. Because of this, and the fascinating nature of the German language, we just couldn't resist bringing you the 10 things you didn't know about the German language. German is famous for its compound words, which are words formed from a number of other words put together into one. German can have ridiculously long words you could never get in English, such as Rindfleischetikettungsüberwachungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz, which means law for the delegation of monitoring beef labeling. Others are Rechtsschutzversicherungsgesellschaften, which means insurance companies providing legal protection, and Bezirksschornsteinfegermeister, which means head district chimney sweeper. And there are many others, basically as many words as there is German imagination. So just think of a word and you might be able to create it. Since the wide-scale immigration of millions of Turkish people into Germany over the last few decades, Turkish culture and language have become a large and important part of Germany. Particularly interesting is the phenomenon of Turkish German, which is a variety of German mostly spoken by the children of Turkish immigrants. Some of the characteristics of Turkish German are short abbreviated sentences and a certain type of vocabulary. Some of the vocabulary you will frequently hear are ische, which means bitch, Alter, which is an abbreviated form of Alter, referring to an old man, but now means any person the speaker is referring to. Frequent use of the word Hure, which technically means whore, but now can refer to anyone, and the universal application of the informal you without ever using formal you, which is to say, in Turkish German, everyone is a du. Of course, this is fairly normal, as different communities always tend to branch out and culturally enrich the language of their host countries, and nowhere is this more true than with Turkish German. Classically, German has distinguished between formal you and informal you, which in German is sie, or ihr, or du. But in recent years, there's been an interesting trend whereby the formal you has begun to disappear in many contexts where it formerly would have been required. Sie is supposed to be used with strangers, older people, and people you just don't know too well. Just a few decades ago, formal you was still being used by students at university to address each other, but that is long gone, and these days, every student at university is a du. However, the change is greater than that. Online, everyone is a du, or will get geduzt rather than gesiezt, and even in places such as shops and cafes, people these days have an overwhelming tendency to use du rather than sie. Sie is still used in official places such as banks and business meetings, but it is increasingly losing ground to du just about everywhere. There have been parallel developments in languages such as Swedish, where the formal you simply disappeared from the language during the 20th century, so it might be that the German language will follow suit. While many languages in the world are more complex than German, as far as West European languages go, German is still pretty difficult, particularly for English speakers. It has a different word order, grammatical gender, and a host of other things that can drive people batty. Take the following German sentence, for example. Hat mir mitgeteilt, dass gestern aufgrund der neulich von der Bank angekündigten Zinssatzerhöhung einen großen Geldbetrag auf sein Sparkonto überwiesen hatte. Which idiomatically translates as, he informed me that he had transferred a large sum of money to his savings account yesterday because the bank had recently announced higher interest rates, but literally would be translated as the following. He has me informed that he yesterday, because of the recently by the bank announced interest rate raise, a large sum of money to his savings account transferred had. This difficulty of the German language has been alluded to by Mark Twain, who wrote an essay titled The Awful German Language, in which he stated, "Never knew before what eternity was made for? It is to give some of us a chance to learn German." English is everywhere these days, and German hasn't done a good job standing up to its influence. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of English words and expressions in German these days, such as just for fun, fair, liken, derived from like, baby, Kisch, Chicken, derived from Czech, catering, and many more. Sometimes this is referred to as Denglish, but these days these words might as well be German, given their frequent use and the fact that so many employ them. Speaking of grammatical gender, if you're used to Spanish or French, German might throw you off a bit, because it has 3 genders, and oftentimes there is no rhyme or reason to it, and it just needs to be memorized with the word. Sure, there are some patterns, such as most words ending with tum tend to be neuter, or neither masculine nor feminine, such as das Heiligtum, which refers to a sanctuary or sometimes sainthood, or das Deutschtum, which refers to Germanness or German culture, but there are exceptions, such as der Reichtum and der Irrtum, which both end with tum but are masculine in gender and mean wealth and error, respectively. The biggest challenge for English speakers, however, is that some German words look identical but have different genders and correspondingly different meanings. For example, der Laster is masculine and refers to a truck, but das Laster is neuter and refers to vice. Others are der Kiefer, which refers to a jawbone and is masculine, but die Kiefer, which refers to a pine tree and is feminine, der Ekel, which refers to disgust or revulsion and is masculine, but das Ekel, which is neuter and means an obnoxious or monstrous person, der Verdienst, which is masculine and refers to financial earnings, but das Verdienst, which is neuter and refers to achievement. There are many others like these, and they only serve to confuse and troll the poor learner of German. The German language has a long philosophical tradition embodied in such thinkers and philosophers as Hegel, Kant, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, and others. Nazi Party member and philosopher Martin Heidegger was known for his descriptive claims about the special properties of the German language for the purposes of philosophy, as he stressed the abstract and inscrutable nature of German for creating philosophical concepts. The original works of German philosophy are often incredibly difficult to read in the original, let alone translate. Many German words also tend to be mehrdeutig, or ambiguous, such as Geist, which can mean both spirit and mind at the same time, and do not allow for an easy English translation. You might be surprised to hear this, but Germans make mistakes too. In fact, the current generation of Germans makes more mistakes than you would probably guess. Despite the fact that German spelling is very simple, many Germans these days cannot distinguish between spelling certain words. One of the most prominent examples of this is the word das, meaning that, which many Germans tend to write as das, also meaning that, but in a different context. But despite this, anywhere you see written German, you will see das written instead of das. Germans also get the gender wrong of words. For example, the identical word pair der Verdienst versus das Verdienst is misunderstood by most Germans, and they tend to say der Verdienst all the time, even when it means achievement rather than financial earnings, in which case the proper form would be das Verdienst. There are many other instances of this, such as Germans saying einzigste instead of einzige, which is incorrect, meaning only, or besser wie instead of besser als, which means better than. They might have learnt it all in school, but somehow it just got lost in transition. Called the Rechtschreibreform in German, in 1996, all German-speaking countries agreed to reform the German spelling system to reduce the complexity and make it even easier than it had been. One of the fundamental changes involved changing the near-universal letter SZ, which is a sharp S, to a double S, or SS, provided the vowel that preceded it was short. An example of this would be Fluss, or river, which used to be written as Fluss with SZ, but because it has a short vowel, it now has a double SS instead of an SZ. On the other hand, a word such as Fuß, meaning foot, has retained the SZ because the vowel is long. Generally speaking, the spelling reform has been poorly received, with large numbers of people continuing to write in the old way, and others just mixing it up quite a bit. There have even been polls in recent years that indicate that many people simply wish to return to the old way. But given the tense political situation in Germany, it is unlikely that spelling reform will take centerpiece anytime soon. German has a number of words that many Germans think are English in origin, but are never used in English in the same way despite seeming English. Over the years, they have become so anchored to the language that few people think about them much anymore, but they are a bit strange, at least for English speakers. Some of these words are Handy, which means mobile phone in German, but its original English meaning actually translates to German handlich. Mobbing, which means bullying in German, but means crowded or crowding in English. Public viewing, which means watching a football match from outside, but not just watching people walk by. And wellness, which generally refers to a spa or massage parlor rather than actual health. There you have it. But Germans are known for their creativity, even being creative with words from other languages. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to check out our other lists And thanks for watching. And thanks for learning. Bis zum nächsten Mal.